I'm Christina Day, the Director of Planning for the City of Plano.
My name is Curtis Howard. I am the Director of Neighborhood Services for the City of Plano.
I've been with the City of Plano for 26 years. I started with the city in the late 90s as a planner and have worked for the planning department through that entire time with various areas of responsibility, including development reviews, so looking at development of the city, site plans, plats, zoning cases, as well as managing our housing and grant program for a number of years. So I've had various experiences doing also long-range planning, and I've been the director for the last 10 years.
So I've worked for the City of Plano for about 12 years. I'm an attorney, and prior to the City of Plano, I worked as a prosecutor with the Collin County DA's office. The City of Plano started dealing with short-term rentals in 2019. And back at the time, I was with the police department. I was head of our crime analysis unit. And so what we were seeing is we were seeing complaints come in and calls for service regarding short-term rentals. These are basically quality of life issues surrounding noise, parking, trash in the neighborhoods, and that sort of thing. So as these complaints started coming in, the City of Plano decided to take a proactive approach, and we created a interdepartmental team to look at ways to deal with some of the issues that we were seeing. So several of the directors and various employees got together and kind of came up with a way of dealing with some of the issues that we were seeing as far as complaints go from our citizens.
I'll follow up with sort of the next phase of this situation, where in November of 2022, the city started to see individuals come and speak before the city council, and that there were an increasing number of individuals attending the council meetings to discuss their concerns. So based on that circumstance, the council initiated a study of short-term rentals, and that continued with a task force that was appointed. They adopted interim measures in May of 2023, and that then moved forward into a process where we created a phase 1 report through the task force that looked at what are the issues surrounding short-term rentals. Then phase 2 of the study process was regarding solutions that could potentially help the community resolve these issues that were identified in phase 1. And that resulted in a number of changes to the city's ordinances. We adopted a zoning ordinance change in April of this year, and then also passed a companion registration ordinance.
And I think probably the reason that the city wants to address these issues is because certainly we were seeing a handful of properties that were really causing some problems for the surrounding neighbors. And because of that, the city and through the study and through the task force came up with some possibilities in trying to deal with some of those issues. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a handle on that to make sure that our neighborhoods continue to be vibrant and safe, and that people feel comfortable there. And by addressing some of those problem properties, we hopefully will accomplish that.
Right. Part of the process included really digging into data. We hired a company called Deckard Technologies to help supply data on the number of short-term rentals in the community. And we did the best analysis we could using the data from the police department to find out where there were calls for service, and found that the relationship between calls for service and housing units was different for short-term rentals than it was for other single-family homes. And so looking at that data really helped us make some decisions about where we needed to focus our energies. And we also looked at surrounding cities and really cities all across the state of Texas, and even some outside Texas, to look at what kind of were best practices, and implemented those where they were appropriate for the city of Plano and to resolve our concerns. And we think maybe there's more of an impact to owners than renters, really, with regard to this issue, because owners need to know upfront when they're purchasing a property what are the allowances for the land use, and then also because of the registration program, we that would be conducted by an owner, most likely, rather than renters would not be involved in that process. The main thing we think renters need to know is under the registration ordinance, there is a certificate issued, and so if you're staying in a Airbnb or a short-term rental in Plano, you need to be looking for that certification, and you might check that up front, because if you have that certification, you're going to know this is a legitimate property, they've registered with the city, and probably less likely to have cancellations or some unknown situation occur. Safer bet for your rental.
Yeah, and for those that are looking on these host platforms, Airbnb, Vrbo, HomeAway, and everything else, most of those legitimate big platforms will have information on whether or not it's a registered property here in the city of Plano.
PlanoSTR.com is our website that owners can go and check and look at all the information that we have for short-term rentals. It includes a map that shows geography of where new short-term rentals are not allowed, where new short-term rentals are allowed, and then locations where they may be allowed. And the reasons why we needed to have the maybe category relate to multifamily properties where a certain percentage of the units are allowed. So we really need to check on that to make sure a new unit can become a short-term rental. So also planned development districts may have specific requirements in them that are unique to that property. And so we want to make sure that we're doing quality control and giving you the best answer possible. So that's why the maybe category exists. There are allowances where you can add short-term rentals by right. Most of those are in newer neighborhoods where in zoning districts where hotels are allowed. For about the last 20 years, Plano has allowed housing in commercial zoning areas because we had too much commercial zoning. So there are a number of neighborhoods where short-term rentals can be allowed, but it's not your typical single-family neighborhood. In most of those locations, the existing short-term rentals are grandfathered as non-conforming uses, but new short-term rentals will not be allowed in those locations. So please, if you're looking at buying property and you want to use it as a short-term rental, we strongly encourage you to call the city and go through due diligence process.
And PlanoSTR.com. I think the city, what we're really trying to do is we're trying to make sure that information is out there. So whether you're a realtor, whether you're somebody who's looking at purchasing a home, or just anybody who's interested in our process will be able to go to PlanoSTR.com and get the most updated information on the stuff that we have.
Curtis, if someone's looking at buying a home and is curious, what is the registration process like? What's the burden for that? What is it that they need to do to register?
So one of the things one of the ordinances that we passed here in April was a registration ordinance. And what that requires now is that all short-term rental properties have to be registered with the city of Plano. So what that'll do is we've got an online portal that they'll be able to apply to, upload the information they need. It will be annual registration, and it'll be $300, but we have the ability, based upon them taking a class that will be offered to the city of Plano. And also, if they go 12 months without having an issue, somebody doesn't complain on them, a legitimate complaint, then that would be an additional $100 for the class and $100 for no complaints. So that would make the annual fee $100. So we're trying to reduce that, make sure we try and reduce the financial burden on STR operators and owners. And then so in addition, what will happen is what we're looking at is we want to make sure that operators and owners are good neighbors. And so one of the things that we require is we're going to require that they provide contact information of either the operator, the owner, or the manager. And that way, if we do have a problem, we can make sure we get in touch with the right person and hopefully mitigate that problem before it becomes a bigger problem for the neighborhood. And in doing that, if we do have a situation where it does become a bigger problem, we may have the ability then to deny somebody from registering or suspend their registration for 3, 6, or up to 12 months. So in addition to the ability to suspend somebody's registration based upon complaints, we also have the ability to enforce it through criminal action. So it could be an ordinance violation and somebody might get a citation, if they violate the ordinance.
I think one of the other things that realtors should understand or would be useful to understand is I think the registration program and the zoning ordinance changes are intended to provide a mitigation for some of the issues that have been seen in the past. So we really anticipate there being fewer issues because there's accountability for operators to be good operators. The majority of operators are good operators, but this allows the city to hold people accountable. So any kind of concern about short-term rentals, I think, will be reduced hopefully through these actions.
I think probably one of the things that we want people to know is we are committed to working with owners and operators of short-term rentals. This is not a gotcha situation. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that we promote good neighbors in our neighborhoods to prevent problems, so we don't get calls to the police department, so we don't get calls to neighborhood services. So we're committed to doing that.
That's good. I'll just reiterate that we have attempted to put as much information as possible that's useful to you on planostr.com, and if people do have things they can't find or suggestions for how we can improve that, we're open to those suggestions, and please feel free to contact us. Both of our information is available on the plano.gov website. I'm just going to say thank you to the realtors for doing this. We really are making efforts to be proactive in educating people about this, and we appreciate the opportunity that you're providing to us to spread the word.
And we'll continue to be available if you need anything from us.